I've been wanting to talk about Hunt Showdown. Developed by the Frankfurt-based Crytek, put onto Steam in early access in February 2018, added onto my Steam account on the 8th of August 2019, and finally released 19 days after I bought it, Hunt Showdown is my favorite competitive multiplayer game. In it, you play as a hunter, a catch-all term for anybody interested in delving into a corrupted by dark magic's late 19th century America. In 2 of the 3 game modes, you fight between other players over a bounty token and must extract with it in order to earn back any semblance of money you've invested into your loadout. Whether you're fighting for money, spectacle, bloodlust, or wanting to fight back against the otherworldly horrors, something pulls you back into the bayou, or now the mountains of Colorado. That's pretty much Hunt. You go into a match, race over to the location of a MacGuffin, kill anything in your way, and then die or live to see another day. This premise is a big reason why Hunt captured my interest back in 2019, besides the art. I mean, Crytek's had this premise locked down in some shape or form since 2014 when it was still being worked on by Crytek USA. What once started as a co-op PvE game about hunting mythological creatures turned into the brutal PvPvE shooter we have today. Sadly, Crytek USA had to shut down to get to where we are, but at least their spiritual successor, Gunfire Games, kinda gave Hunt's original vision another shot with Remnant from the Ashes. Western iconography and paranormal aberrations packed into a weird Souls-like that doesn't really hit that FromSoft-shaped nail on its head. But it makes good drunk fun. Bro, did he just... Dude, what is... This game makes no sense! Who the fuck are you? With Hunt Showdown though, back in 2019, there weren't too many games like it, and arguably there still isn't anything that scratches that specific itch it satisfies. At the time of recording this, I've clocked in about 650 hours into the game over the course of 5 years, and not to brag, but I've been in 6-star MMR for maybe half a year. This is a video I've long wanted to make, and I think I'm now qualified to create it. I'm usually logged onto Hunt if I'm not playing a single-player game or working on something. There's no contest. It's easily my favorite competitive multiplayer game. No, scratch that. It's my favorite multiplayer game, period. Despite Titanfall 2's movement, the other TF2 being my childhood, and Straftat feeling like it was made for me, I always return to Hunt and even struggle to close it when I have to. Like, dude, I had 2 big-ass projects last semester, but for a full week I just played Hunt and crammed all the homework I had into a single Sunday. Hunt is distinctively tense thanks to its circumstances and premise, but because of its dedication to creating anxiety-inducing anticipation, you couldn't really play, watch, read, hear, feel, or imitate the very feelings you find in a Hunt match. Yes, you can experience the same highs and lows as any other competitive shooter. The adrenal bliss of a clutch or the crushing emptiness of a losing streak is not unique to a single game. But let me ask you this. Has any competitive shooter made you scared of buzzing flies, distant horses, or even creaking wood? Before actually talking about Hunt, I like to get into a couple of things. The first is how talking about multiplayer games differs from single-player ones. This could be seen as a disclaimer preface thing, I don't know what to fucking call it, but I think it's interesting how analyses of the 2 compare. For one, single-player games are designed for one player's experience. Like, take for example, you don't have to consider what it'd feel like to be on the other end of a BFG or a Black Knight glaive. So when analyzing a multiplayer game, there's an added layer of consideration to observations and critiques. Then there's the online experience. That's out of player control. Communities are formed by figureheads and people from adjacent games. Some people are chill, others are assholes or weirdos. I guess actually, the behavior is the player's fault. You control if you're an asshole or not. It's the nature of the internet. That's sadly how people are, and just a reality to be dealt with. But thankfully, it isn't a determinant of a game's quality or mechanics unless socialization was the whole point of the game. Lastly, the biggest difference is obviously the online connection. Multiplayer games are a living ecosystem of not just primates on keyboards, but also fluctuating code and progressive updates. Hunt is like what almost every multiplayer game has become today, a service. It's far from what it was 4 years ago, hell, even 1 or 2 years ago. New mechanics, content, and tweaked values created an arguably vastly different experience from what it was before. Hunt is continuously being changed, and because of that, this review will probably become outdated at some point, possibly within the year. These are just quickly a few things I like to present to keep in mind when viewing this video, or just even thinking about Hunt Showdown, or really any multiplayer game. Okay, time to get off this fucking soapbox. Let's talk about video games now. Let's get back to that premise about risking your life in a forbidden world for the chance of profit. Going into a map, walking around, killing or dying for loot. Repeat. That's pretty much the loop for the extraction shooter. These games boil down to risking life and limb for a paycheck rather than a celebratory win screen. Although not an extraction shooter, the DNA for the genre exists in its progenitors, the Stalker games. While GSC Game World's games are focused on a living ecosystem for the player to interact and struggle with, the economy and certain gameplay elements run parallel with the typical extraction shooter. I'll keep it short since I do want to give the Stalker games their own video one day, but these games laid down the foundation for at least some of this category of games that have been increasing in popularity for the past 4 to 5 years. Stalker takes place in an exclusion zone full of hazards and financial opportunities. Players must scrape by with the loot they can scrounge, and more often than not, players find themselves struggling to maintain a decent modicum of wealth. It's a constant battle between your wallet and the environment. Then, once you've returned from scavenging the wastes, you have to decide how to spend your money. Whether you consider buying more ammo, new equipment, repairs for your current gear, or even simply using temporary alternatives for your loadout, you need to consider each cent you spend before your next outing. Even after making bank from a bountiful excursion, every dollar needs to be accounted for because improper use of funds can lead to being penniless. At least before the real endgame, it's a constant battle of frugal attrition. Players need to consider all sorts of dangers, expected and unexpected, to create a properly kitted out Stalker. It's this rags to riches gameplay loop that's at the core of the extraction shooter, using everything and anything you have at your disposal to its fullest in order to get better gear to then repeat an act of survival. It's similar to Diablo's loot acquisition and accumulation, building a stockpile to fatten your wallet and strengthen your character. But rather than power fantasy euphoria being the end goal, it's survival. Nowadays, it's being further expanded upon in various ways, like Sulphur's roguelike spelunking, quasi-morph squad building, or Zero Sievert turning Stalker into a roguelike with a top-down perspective. However, it's especially iterated in multiplayer games like Marauders, The Forever Winter, and of course, the biggest name in the genre. 2017's Escape from Tarkov is the archetypical extraction shooter. It's come to define what people think of when they hear the term. While not a single-player game like Stalker or Ukrainian, it shares the same financial despair. In it, you kit out your PMC character with weapons, medical supplies, food, ammunition, and anything else you might need from your own wallet to then venture into a secluded zone with equal amounts of danger and treasure. The difference between the two is that Tarkov is focused on monetary fortitude alongside players facing each other to build it up. There are a lot of similarities to find between Stalker and Tarkov. Both take place in a warded area, have cruel economics, and make the player feel like a puny ant in its own world. You're a dime a dozen PMC set on making a profit, not an Italian plumber. Killing in both franchises isn't to change the lives of others, but to better your own through earning more resources. Tarkov blends Stalker's ecosystem and monetary means with multiplayer competitiveness. Your end goal in Tarkov is to amass wealth to stay ahead of others so that you can complete your quests given by Dollar Store Sidorovich and his colleagues. In Tarkov, and some other extraction shooters, the formula has been expanded to include light base building elements where you can upgrade your dwelling space. But even then, you still need to maintain your home's upkeep to continue reaping its rewards, meaning your body's survival becomes intertwined with your base's fleeting power. Compared to Stalker, how you use your money is far more significant. Since Tarkov is a multiplayer game, you can't return to a previous save to try to keep more of your money after a death or a stupid expense. Losing in Tarkov means an almost definite depletion of all the guns, meds, armor, and money invested into a run. Death in Tarkov isn't just a lose state, but a persistent loss of progress and resources. You need to accept that you've tangibly lost equipment, time, and resolve while gaining nothing. This high-risk, high-reward premise is what's defined the extraction shooters of today. Look at every other iteration of the formula, and you'll see this recurring battle between the player and their wallet. It's a tangential offshoot of the battle royale genre where strategic planning and financial consideration rate its engagement over King of the Hill Glory, a stretched out and frugally sprinkled dopamine euphoria compared to a large burst of ecstasy. Tarkov's stash and loadout creation makes each online match a continuation of a story where the player is building up their strength compared to a battle royale single match adrenaline where every game you load into is its own battle and isolated progression. In a lot of multiplayer games, each queued up game is its own confined space of progression and loss. Dying, killing, earning kill streaks, completing objectives, and winning or losing are dictated into single events. The only exception to this would be if a game offers a ranked game mode where every online battle counts towards rising or falling in the leaderboards of ranks. Extraction shooters have those same beats per match, but each one is a step in the story of a player's overall account, supplies, and objective progression rather than just a numerical value that represents skill. So how is Hunt any different? Something evil, a cosmic amorphous force, is raising the undead and spawning unspeakable horrors. The bayous of Louisiana and now some parts of Colorado have been cordoned off by the government. Nobody's allowed in unless you're some madman with a gun. Unlike Stalker or even Tarkov, Hunt Showdown's exclusion zone is devoid of human life. So sorry to any lore masters watching, but I'm pretty sure nobody lives in any of the maps Hunt takes place in. It'd be a miracle to see anybody actually live off the land in these hellholes. Hunt's maps are the remnants of a civilization turned into a wardenless hunting grounds for mercenaries, cultists, and researchers. The only treasures to find are the otherworldly trophies left behind by fabled monsters with a bounty on their head. Getting to those bosses is part of the challenge when signing up to complete a contract. There are 4 maps in the game, or 3 at the time of writing. Exploring the map is the biggest chunk of gameplay. They're derelict and beyond inhabitable, perfect for the bleak wasteland you're forced to delve into. It's a marshy, dilapidated world where you can smell the rot and feel the sogging mud through the screen. Nature is indifferent, making it a mystery as to whether it's welcomed, fought against, or simply doesn't care about the plague that's ravaging it and the fauna. Gameplay-wise, you can feel it. Only in select areas does the wilderness actually provide serious cover that isn't a veil of leaves, a pathetically thin tree, or an awkward mound that refuses to hide you. Worst case scenario, you run across an open field and the next thing you see is the death screen. The toughest spots to fight in the wilderness are usually rockier parts of a map or raised gnarling knots of earth and trees in the swamps. These areas force players to fight for the high ground or to execute a surprise flank through the foliage. But most of the time when you're in nature, it's meandering. Trekking through thickets and wading through scum, the wilderness is a transitionary realm between the areas of interest. Now, combat can occur in it, as I've implied, and well, actually not really implied, straight up just said. Combat will sometimes be spurred in the immediate woods surrounding structures and towns. Yet, more often than not, if one team isn't dead or hiding, they'll be booking it for the nearest cave or building possible. On the other side of Hunt's level design are the compounds, which are spotted around the wilderness. Compared to the chaotic greenery, they're structured and familiar, meant to develop strategy and muscle memory. It'll take you forever to remember the world's jumble of mud, rocks, and trees, but the compounds are reliably organized for self-improvement. They're maps within the 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer map you load into, and they're just as decrepit. Every compound is a roll of the dice in a game of abandonment. From pungent slaughterhouses to the corpses of industry, each point of interest varies depending on its past life. Compounds, however, are the destinations for all that nature walking. Some compounds have armories for those that need ammo, pickups like money or account XP, or weapons and tools to equip. But these aren't unique to compounds. The wilderness has a few supply depots randomly placed across the map, and all the cabins, shacks, or hunting towers can hold loose change, gear, or other goodies. The real reason compounds are key to progressing in a match is to find the contract target. Throughout a match, you have to collect upwards of 3 clues, these bug nest campfire things. As each clue is obtained, the player's map narrows down the location of a boss compound where pretty much everybody else who's still alive will spill blood. It's a race against time where teams skip through towns unless shot at or luckily stumbling onto the bounty target. It can be a real shame because the compounds are immensely filled with minutia. Nowhere is scampered in its details. You can see the past lives of hunting lodges, fishermen, railroad workers, socialites, miners, and so much more. The basic AI are called grunts, they're fodder as their name implies. Simple and only dangerous in hordes, grunts are pretty much just there to slow you down. What you should worry about are the stronger enemies. Armored grunts are considerably much tankier and deadlier, slowing you down twice-fold or more if they're wrapped in concertina wire. Hives aren't tankier, but are essentially ranged enemies by sending swarms of demon flies at players when triggered. Dogs are nuisances, they're fast and can dodge while leaving you bleeding. Then there are meatheads, the tankiest of the bunch, but thankfully blind. Despite the impairment, they spawn leeches, which can allow the meathead to see players after a leech has poisoned somebody. Or if the player's been poisoned by anything, they just see things that are poison. I don't know, some dark magic shit. Oh yeah, they also added this bear thing to the woods, kind of like a meathead. Finally, immolators are fast and somewhat beefy opponents that erupt into flames if a blade or bullet pierces their skin. While being a set of monsters with unique elements, they all amount to being sound alarms. Compounds are structured in a way where anybody out in the open is prey to privy eyes. Because the maps are so lusciously detailed, players can find elaborate and downright nasty peek holes to get the drop on players. Stand on a desk to peer through the top of a boarded window, leer through the furniture to watch a nearby enemy hunter, poke your gun through 2 boards to then let another player see the death screen. The number of peeks in the game is terrifying, but I'm admittedly embellishing their power. Just because you can get an insane sightline doesn't mean they are all good. Most of the teeniest cracks in a wall are so narrow you'd have to pray for a player to walk by. So more often than not, you'll be peering through intended openings to surprise other players, which then gives ample reaction time and visual clearance to your opponent. Ample being correlated to how visible you are, of course, or if the enemy even knows where you are, or if they have any game sense or good eyesight. But even then, the sound design is so fucking good that your ears can be better than your eyes. I've played enough Hunt to distinguish gunshots to their respective weapon, or at the very least, their caliber. Side bit, but it's real neat now with the sound traveling system where you can take a shot, somebody dies, and then half a second later they realize that their friend was sniped by somebody like in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. The sound design is impeccable with how booming and smoky gunshots are, followed by the gargling of grunts or a fire crackling at the end of a battle. Beyond being ear candy and letting you recognize what weapons other people have, sound is more useful to pinpoint players. Every action makes a sound. Stomp on wood, walk on metal, sneak on mud, you better acknowledge that somebody can hear every step you take. Interactions follow this design philosophy with doors, ammo boxes, lights, elevators, medkits, toolboxes, and pretty much anything else I didn't mention making some sort of sound. Even player actions can give you away with the sigh of relief from healing, the clinking of reloading weapons, or if you're close enough, the subtle gasp a player makes when aiming down sights. To make things worse or better, depending on which side of an ambush you're on, the map's littered with sound traps. Aside from the aggravated growling and yelling AI can make when alerted, you'll find more non-living and living alarm bells. If you're not being cautious, you'll step on broken glass or sprinkled cans, which louden your footsteps considerably. Hanging chains, bottles, and horseshoes can also be found in some buildings, reinforcing how much the world wants a bullet in your belly. Even in the woods, you can step on an innocent branch, releasing a frightening snap when sneaking around players. The only way to circumvent these sound traps is to avoid them or crouch around them in the hopes of being quiet enough to flank other players. But some sound traps ask you to be more aware. Horses and cows wail when disturbed, only being silenced by death. Murders of crows and families of bats wait in the worst spots to then caw and fly away. Crows are the worst of the bunch, being placed on walls and rooftops, hell, even on the top of fences. But the bigger reason that they're so bad is that they fly in the opposite direction of whatever alerted them, allowing for trained hunters to gauge where players could be heading. There's been so many times where I've played a game and we've stepped on crows to then only have another cracked out team just pinpoint our exact location and murder us. Like horses, crows can be killed, but horses are so much easier and less resource demanding since crows can only be killed by a Molotov or poison cloud. Just like their non-living counterparts, there's a cost to bypass them. Whether it be time, different routing, or a tangible resource, sound traps necessitate players to balance their actions with audible volume. You can sneak into a compound, but a horse had you take the time to kill it. Broken glass makes your footsteps more noticeable, and opening a door, no matter how slowly, will still let out a slight whine as it creaks. Pair the usage of sound with the compounds packed full of sightlines, passages, and cover, and the two make up for the stealthing third of Hunt's gameplay. So the moment you hear the slightest disturbance within your vicinity, you'll need to be ready for the sanctity of silence to erupt into violence. Gunfights start one of two ways. You either see it coming or you don't. Someone shot that immolator. Ambushing is the key to success in Hunt's PvP encounters. Preventing any noise is important, but the context to doing so is setting up kills or preventing death. You hear the slapping of mud approaching, so you wait and you get the drop on those players, or you're walking through a town only for a deafening crack to make you another limp body. Although a surprise gives you an advantage, it's usually the start of a long, clunky brawl. When fighting for your life, it's natural to take the path of least resistance. In Hunt, this means holding your ground and playing peekaboo with your opponents. While a viable strat, it's not recommended. Constantly re-peeking an angle leaves you more vulnerable to slipping up and getting headshotted the next time you poke your head through a window. Or worse, getting snuck up on. What typically wins fights more than anything, sometimes even good aim, is proper repositioning. This is why you need to take the time to learn the maps and their compounds. Knowing how to escape while cornered or about a secret underground entrance is the difference between life and death. Remembering teeny peepholes and what floors or walls you can shoot through can turn around the direst of fights. But even then, maintaining distance from a trio and their shotguns helps a lot too. The compounds are genuinely, for the most part, so fucking amazing with the number of opportunities they allow for flanking and weaseling out of tough spots. While stalemates can happen, that's what I mean for the most part, more often than not, it's a constant battle for territorial control. Players have a back and forth of advancing and retreating until one side fumbles. Even if I die, I have a hard time complaining if I made my enemies work for that kill. You're already a pretty limp athlete, so you have to take advantage of every ledge, corner, and trench you find yourself in. By default, you have a limited sprint, eventually slowing to a jog when you're out of breath. Adding to that, you can't spam crouch, and your vertical movement is constrained to a small jump and any abuse of the vaulting mechanic you can do. The power that comes from your movement is how you place yourself in the environment. If you're caught out of cover, you're likely dead if you can't outshoot them. Bobbing and weaving, running around like a headless chicken, can help you only for so long. The real strength in combat is to find a good spot where the enemy least expects you. Hunt's weapons will leave the frailest of hearts shattered in the sheer tensity they spawn. I know I've already presented how nerve-wracking the combat is through just how the environment is used. I find the encounter design of Hunt's compounds to be one of Hunt's least appreciated aspects, but the weapons are the finishing touch to how taut the tension is. Hunt's guns are clunky, slow, and loud. The reason why positioning is king in this game is because of how obtuse the weaponry is. You shoot, wait a minute to ready the next shot, shoot again, and then take an eternity to reload. Why else would you play peekaboo besides taking cover when chambering a new round or cycling a gun's action? It's a bit funny that hunters calmly empty spent casings to load new ones, but it's not awkward. The animations, timings, and especially the sound design make any kills you get so much more satisfying. Rifles ring out in the sky, shotguns bellow in distant buildings, and weapon actions clink and snap with each reload. Because of the importance of sound in Hunt, you can actually make out how far a gunfight could be happening and what weapons enemy hunters are using. If you heard a rapid succession of two booms, then they're probably using the Caldwell rival double-barrel shotgun. If you heard a continuous string of light cracks, then it's probably a Winfield rifle. If it's a 3-round burst, fucking run, it's a goddamn automat. Those sounds, and more importantly animations, make aiming and shooting only half of the battle. Map knowledge and even understanding the game's arsenal and equipment are just as important. My favorite way to describe Hunt's gunfights is a slower, neutered form of a railgun instagib duel from a game like Quake. Or fucking Rat's Instagib. Railgun duels are lightning fast with how players bounce through arenas. A game like Quake will have players learn maps to know the best routing and points of advantage to control, just like how Hunt has players memorize compounds to slither out of danger or cause it. Then there's also the pretty much non-existent time to kill from the insta-jibbing. Hunt's time to kill isn't as fast, but it can feel like it when you get instantly headshotted by a crack shot. Even with headshots, weapon damage is brutal, with most guns being able to 2-tap a player in the chest from 50 meters away. Hunt's time to kill is oddly, simultaneously, fast and slow. You shoot a guy in the chest, but then it takes you another half second to get the follow-up shot ready. Or you just simply shoot him twice with a buddy, or headshot them. Lastly, there's also how whiffing is just as painful as missing a railgun shot. When you miss, you've given the enemy an opportunity to kick you back to the main menu. The pain varies from weapon to weapon, but also between encounters. Sometimes, even if you didn't miss, but just got a hit marker, the end result would have been the same face of buckshot. Hunt has a huge army of weapons to pick from, with different flavors of shotguns, revolvers, rifles, experimental weapons, and even melee weapons. Melee isn't an obsolete thing in Hunt. You can get quite far with a katana or an axe, but there's a reason you don't see everybody charging with a machete all the time. Really, they're more of a utility item that's better at killing things than a tool slot weapon. If anything, the game's open to experimentation by how viable every weapon is. If you do like a specific weapon, you can unlock variants of it that promote a specific playstyle, or change how it works entirely. While Hunt does have a meta, that being long ammo rifles and slug ammo shotguns, you can still wipe a server with a humble Winfield. Every gun in Hunt is aggravatingly slow because of their antiquity. After pressing left click, you have to lever, pump, cycle, cock, or break open your gun just to get another shot in. So the faster you can do so, the quicker you can put one right between a sucker's eyes. I mean, the Mosin's always been good with his high damage, long range, fast reload, and even clear iron sights. But that doesn't matter if I headshot a guy that's using one with my Silence Nagant revolver. Not that that's likely, but every weapon has almost as much of the same chance to kill somebody. Because every weapon is reasonably viable, it makes casual play much more engaging. For the less meta-friendly weapons, players just need to work around their quirks or play around their strengths, even if the said weapon doesn't have as many strengths as a Mosin or a Labelle or the fucking Dolch. Can we please just stop using Dolches? They're not fun to play against. But I think the most important thing to know about a weapon are its strengths, because that's what defines your playstyle. I wouldn't call Hunt a realistic shooter. Despite the dedication to creating intricate weapon models and animations, they're not all true to real life, because imagine how awful it would be to reload one of these guns. Like, no. It's more about maintaining authenticity than it is about pure simulation. But Hunt has both bullet travel and bullet drop, with the latter being somewhat of a newer addition. If you don't know these terms, bullet travel is how long it takes for the imaginary bullet your left-click summon to reach its destination, and bullet drop is how far that bullet flies straight before it becomes affected by gravity. Oh yeah, the weight of the bullet you're firing is one of the many factors into your gun's stats. Besides caliber, what defines your weapon's effective range are the barrel's length and how the gun functions. Generally speaking, the longer a barrel is and the less moving parts there are in your gun, the further and faster a bullet will travel. Lever actions like the Winfield or Mako have more openings and slits for gas to escape from the gun, while the humble Sparks and Springfield rifles have only one opening. These aren't explicitly told to the player, but it's one of the odd idiosyncrasies of faithful firearm recreation that the game's committed to. If that was already hard enough to wrap your head around, there's a plethora of special ammo types that are on top of the 5 base caliber types. Compact ammo is the lightest of the bunch, meaning it loses more damage the further it flies, but it'll fly straight for a good while. Long ammo is the opposite, keeping a lot of damage at the cost of greater bullet drop. Medium ammo's in between the two. Shotgun shells are pretty self-explanatory, and then there's unique ammo like prototype ammo, 700 Nitro Express, and crossbow bolts or arrows. Special ammo is a variation of these stock munitions, specializing in improving a specific stat or producing a specific effect. Shot bolts are sick though. It's literally just a shotgun shell on the stick. It makes for a heavier projectile, but basically gives you a medium-range shotgun and a crossbow that can wallbang. The reason why bullet penetration is an important thing when considering these ammo types is that wallbanging is a viable and very high-skill strategy in Hunt Showdown. It requires good memorization of building interiors and echolocation, but also damage values, since only certain calibers can penetrate certain types of cover. Compact and medium can't go through metal sheets, long ammo can. But certain special ammo for the smaller caliber bullets can get through at least one sheet of metal. Every single one of these munitions specializes or performs something specific between them, and in doing so, Crytek makes players allocate more of their brain memory to remember silly little things like how high velocity ammo produces a bigger puff of smoke than normal ammo. This isn't just to use your loadout to its fullest potential, but to properly play around your enemy's weakness. If your enemy's using ammo that can't wallbang, reveals their position with a tracer, or doesn't pack as much of a punch as yours, you've gotta abuse that info to its breaking point. Like I said, aiming is one thing, but knowing the game's intricacies is the other half of the battle. If I talk about weaponry, I have to talk about the tools, consumables, and traits. No loadout is finalized by its weapons. The guns just define how you kill things, while the rest support varying playstyles. To simplify things, I'll combine the tools and the consumables together, because I mean, they're kind of the same thing, except one can be refilled in the middle of a match while the other can't. Let's go through the categories. There's mob clearing or last resorts, healing and buffing, utility, deception, and player corralling. Despite their categorizations, a lot of the tools can be used in creative ways. ways. The flare trip mine, for example, can burn bodies if you place it on one and then shoot it. Choke bombs can clear out poison clouds and flush out enemy players. Dynamite can be a brief makeshift smoke bomb. The penny shot derringer can instantly destroy doors. The gear available to you is flexible to a reasonable degree. You have to balance your inventory for all sorts of scenarios you prepare for, but you can't be ready for every single one. You always take a knife and medkit, so 2 slots are already gone. Here I'd argue there's more of a correct loadout than there is with picking weapons, because not taking a melee, field kit, and flare gun is almost like asking for a harder time. Even the choke bomb is almost an always take with you choice when playing as a team, but if you can trust your teammates, then only one person really needs it. Choke bombs are powerful not just as zoning tools because they force players to cough out in intervals, but because they prevent downed teammates from being burned for a whole minute. I've somewhat mentioned this already, but one of the biggest parts of Hunt's combat is playing around downed players. Once your health bar reaches 0, well, you're down, you're dead. You can't crawl around towards a teammate or look around from where you fell into the mud. You're pretty much dead and hoping that you can get another shot at life. You just sit and watch and hope that your friends can clutch. Hunt's health system dictates how many times a player gets downed. Hunt has a neat way of constructing a hunter's health. Players have a max of 150 health points and can choose between small and large health bars to make that up. Big bars are 50 HP and small bars are 25. When a bar is blacked out in a match, you can only regain it with a healing item, but when a bar is fully burned out, you lose it until you've extracted, banished a boss, or used a restoration shot. The number of times you can be down depends on how many bars you have, big or small, and with every down, a bar is burned out. If you only have your final 50 health bar and die, you can't be revived without your teammate having the bounty token. This isn't going to be surprising at all, but reviving is a game changer. Having 2 eyes looking for where a gunshot came from helps drastically, but with each revive, you return with less max health, so each mistake leaves a tangibly strong mark on you. However, you don't have to go down to feel how much the game and other players want you dead. You only have a limited amount of healing supplies, and depending on how many you bring in and your traits, you can find yourself scrapping for your life like a rabid dog. You'll at least always regen to 50 health if you've reached your last bar, but most guns deal exactly that much damage or more. The worst thing you can do in Hunt is peeking when not at full health. I mean, the Sparks rifle deals 149 damage to a chest shot. If you're fighting against a guy with that, you can't peek them until you're fully healed. If you're out of meds, the environment or a dead doctor zombie can save you, but you have to look or fight for it. So because players can be revived up to 4 times without any special traits, to apply pressure on their living teammates, you're highly incentivized to burn downed hunters. Burning, besides being one of the strongest debuffs in the game, isn't the worst one. Poison will make your eyes hurt and muffle your hearing, but the worst part about it is that you can't heal at all under its effects. But what's worse than temporary anti-healing or charred health is bleeding. Bleed is a constant tick of damage applied to you that gets stronger the longer you're leaking. It's far easier to remedy by just using a field kit or any healing item, but what makes it the worst is when you're afflicted by it in a gunfight. You have to drop everything to stop it, similarly to being on fire, but the damage is far greater. Even worse, some guns can deal so much damage that if you don't stop the bloodletting immediately, then it's pretty much an instant death. Aside from monsters and headshots, you have to worry about how your health is being drained. Combat has to become this tug of war between 2 sides for not just stable ground, but resources like ammo and health points. You don't get a lot of ammo in Hunt, especially for the stronger weapons, but you typically have enough ammo for a fight. But you also need to stretch that ammo thin. Since ammo boxes and supply depots can be found around the map and in compounds, you can teeter on the edge of bullet bankruptcy. Still, you'll eventually get into a fight where you get to the last 6 bullets in your revolver, so making your shots count is greatly exaggerated. Every failure that ends in a down not only leads one step closer to a loading screen of shame, but also adds to the mounting pressure of getting another chance, albeit with a punctured lung. Death is just a setback until you've expended all available options. The biggest way to make death less painful and preventative is the trait system. Think of them as like perks or skills you can bestow upon your hunter as a reward for making it through the ringer. The amount of trait points you receive after extracting depends on how many times a hunter's leveled up. Like tools and consumables, there's a grand list of traits that suits all sorts of needs, but the best ones are typically what let you keep or gain more of your valuable health points. Doubling the healing strength of field kits, kill an enemy hunter, restore lost health bars, gain faster health regen and dark sight, and lessen the impact of specific debuffs. You've got a lot of tools and skills to regain and maintain HP. HP. Aside from the essential life-saving traits, you've got traits that affect how weapons work, like Iron Eye, Bullet Grubber, Fast Fingers, or powerfully unique abilities like Surefoot, Dauntless, and Quartermaster. There are clearly better traits because of their flexibility, but a good portion of them are also situational, so it's great that you could hold on to like 15 of them. You can invest in complete resilience, making yourself more slippery in gunfights, alleviate some of the weapon's downsides. You can choose whatever you want to minimize inconvenience or emphasize your strengths. But also there are 52 traits to pick from, so you really have to make good use of those 15 trait slots. Some of the more powerful traits are burn, scarce, or even event traits. Burn traits are skills that are consumed upon a special condition, scarce traits can only be found in the world, and event traits, well, they only exist during events. Event traits are mostly fun, but they're also the most experimental of the skills in the game, since it's Crytek's excuse to try out something new or bring back a really old ability. Gun runner. Scarce traits and burn traits vary in their uses, but tend to be worth their rarity, but the one trait that stands above them all is Necromancer. Necromancer is the defining trait of Hunt's gameplay in that it's a real game changer, and the people who don't know how to play against it tend to call it annoying or overpowered. As the name suggests, Necro's used to resurrect the dead. This works in both team and solo play, but the two differ dramatically. In a team, Necro allows somebody to revive a downed friendly within a 25-meter radius at the cost of a longer revive while being in Dark Sight, which limits the player's hearing while making the Necroing player vulnerable. Dark Sight is this unique ability to Hunt Showdown that can help players find clues, and when they have a bounty, to see other players through walls. However, when you're in Dark Sight, your hearing is significantly hindered and your vision is monochrome, making it harder to point out players in the distance. You also can't hold a weapon in this, so it's a very vulnerable state. The teammate revived by Necro is revived as if their partner is right next to them, so it requires good timing, especially if the downed teammate was in a bad spot. You also need to keep in mind the loud ass sound going to Dark Sight makes, so you can't just do it off a whim. However, solo queuing is where Necro's much more valuable. When down as a solo with Necromancer, you can self-revive after a certain amount of time, it depends how far your killer was from you, and return to the material world with every single bar of health. Necro's ability to drag on fights or flip the power dynamic of one is what makes it so powerful, but the fact that it makes solo play actually viable in it being a second chance at a match is additionally what makes it so much more vital of a trait. Trading sucks, but exponentially so when it happens as a solo. But why'd anybody want to fight 1 against 3? I should have mentioned this earlier, but a vast majority of what I've been talking about has been centering around Hunt's flagship game mode, Bounty Hunt. There are multiple game modes, but Bounty Hunt's the most interesting and unique to Hunt. It's what I play the game for and what most people play usually. Outside of it, there's Solo Survivor, which is basically a battle royale game mode where you go in solo and come out with a free leveled hunter. It's the least popular, I'd say. It's not bad, but it's not Hunt Showdown really. It's kind of just taking the battle royale formula into a Hunt Showdown setting. Then there's also the firing range. I don't know if I should really count this as a game mode, but the most interesting of the side game modes is Bounty Clash. It's the newest game mode, but it's basically a bite-sized bounty hunt match taking place in a single compound with a pre-killed bounty target. Since Soul Survivor has the least amount of players and Bounty Clash is just a modified version of the main game mode, I wanted to clarify that everything, especially the economy, is balanced around bounty hunt. Ignoring the thrill of concentrated underdog dopamine, the biggest reason anybody would want to play as a solo is the larger reward. Playing as a trio nets no bonus bounty points, but as a solo, you get a whopping 600 extra, which can feel significant if you're dead broke like me. Duos also get a bonus, but it's not as big. It's like 150, I think. The conversion rate of bounty point to tangible rewards is 1 bounty point equals 4 XP and 1 hunt dollar. XP is for leveling up both hunters and your account. Hunt dollars are the means to an end. $600 isn't a crazy amount of cash. If anything, that's maybe 2 long ammo rifles or an evil ass auto 5 shotgun. But that's just the bonus. The real money comes from grabbing loose change in dead hunters' pockets and extracting with bounty tokens. In Bounty Hunt, your end goal is to kill a contract target, a monstrous beast. There's a spider made of human bodies, a pyromancer meathead that wears a pig head, an annoying ass bug morphing assassin, and Scrapbeak, a scavenging hermit. There are 2 other bosses, but they're classified as wild targets, which can only spawn on a map with 1 contract target, reward only 1 bounty token, and can be found under specific conditions. Rotjaw is a monster alligator that can only be found around bodies of water under specific conditions, and then there's Hellborn, a mega immolator who only spawns on Mammon's Gulch, but at least they'll drop a burn trait, so they're worth going for more than Rotjaw immediately. Actually, did they change that Rotjaw now drops traits? Anyways, the point about these bosses, besides hurting players to 1 point on a map, are those aforementioned bounty tokens. Killing players rewards only XP, not money. So if you want to make real money in a game without being a lame-ass money farmer, then you have to go for as many bounty tokens as you can in a match. You can find money in a match like in abandoned cash registers, purses, and sometimes on saddle satches or dead players, but you won't get any money if you're dead. The only consistent cash source are the measly $50 from a collected clue, but when you die, you don't get any rewards you looted from the game world, while only get half of what you've earned. It's really cruel, especially if you're on a losing streak, which will force you to dabble into pipsqueak free hunters eventually. While creating your own loadout is what makes delving into the bayou for a gunfight so enjoyable, sometimes you just can't afford that opportunity. Free hunters are there to remedy that in the sense that you're given the bare minimum to return to financial stability. Free hunters come with 1 trait, usually one of the less desirable ones, and contraband cheap gear. Contraband items can't be sold, so you can't abuse free hunters for free cash. The equipment isn't terrible per se, but if you truly want to be as frugal as possible, it'll be a bit rough to go in without any additional tools or consumables. And also, like, using a sawed-off Romero and Springfield trapdoors. Not the easiest thing to use in a fight, but if you do hit it big, or at the very least extract with a bit of scavenged dollar bills, then you can go in next time with a better hunter. Extracting without a bounty will at least reward you the full amount of collected XP and money, but you can't get the fat bounty rewards. With each extraction, you're aiming to survive by any means just so you can go back and do it again. Hunt's progression is inherent to financial domination and building up a powerful character. While your account level unlocks new skills, tools, and consumables, you're aiming to level up your hunter above all else. When your hunter's dead, you lose them, meaning you've lost all the money, XP, and time invested into that character. As your hunter levels up, you gain more points to allot into trait slots, so that experience in the bayou truly does build a stronger player beyond game sense and knowledge. If anything, you also want to level up your hunter as much as possible because you gain bonus account level experience and cash when you extract. Continuous success is rewarded, while a single slip-up can be excruciating, especially if that was your last leveled up hunter. The only permanent progression that you gain is your account level. Unlike other extraction shooters that have things like quest lines, base upgrading, or even character skill leveling, Hunt's more arcadey in its approach to player progression. The closest analog I could think of is, of all things, Call of Duty, where you level up your account to unlock new gear or perks to use. Hunt's even got a prestige system where every 100 levels you can choose to reset your level, lose everything, but you get some kind of reward. There isn't a real long-term progression you build towards, only the immediate investment into your current loadout. This system provides not only the gear fear of an extraction shooter, but also a more lax and less tedious experience. Even if death is a cruel loss, you still gain weapon experience to unlock alternative loadout choices in your guns, which makes going back into the bayou just a tiny bit less relenting and a bit more welcoming. I'm not one to want a push towards making Hunt a more friendlier game. I don't think it's super lenient as it is, even though some people might think it's trying to pander towards new players. However, it treads a fine line between antagonist systems and player satisfaction. You go big or go home. It's all in for the whole cash pot or nothing. That's what Hunt's aiming for, and succeeds in realizing. You go in with a handful of dollars and your life for the chance of a fat paycheck and to live another day. Hunt is more elaborate of a game than I remember expecting it to be before I first played it, as well as more so than what I think some people give it credit for. Learning how many meters away a gunfight is happening, what weapon a gunshot belongs to, the price of a dead hunter's rifle, the power of specific traits, every advantage a tool gives, the best possible route in a compound for escaping a gunfight, and as many nitpicking details about you or your opponent's loadouts There's so much shit for nerds to memorize. It's scary, but that's also what makes it so alluring beyond the atmosphere, weaponry, and world building. Hunt isn't hard because of its somewhat unique gameplay, vicious economics, or the Bayou's animosity. It's because of how much you need to learn and remember while expecting the unexpected. Wrap that immensely high skill ceiling knowledge with all of the intricate interactions between the AI, sound trap, tools, and consumables, and even how a door is fucking opened. You've got a game that's not just meticulously detailed, but wonderfully complex. In every game session, even after hundreds of hours, there's still more to learn or master in this clunky shooting game. Like, kinda somewhat recently from in the time I'm recording this, you can like shoot a flare on the ground and throw dynamite on it so that you have it explode instantly on impact. It's so cool. Like that, why is that a thing? Because it's cool, because you can shit on players with this. Unlike a game like Counter-Strike, Hunt is competitive because of the intrinsic desire to not go broke and styling on other players. There's no leaderboard or ranked mode, only your wallet and becoming the last player standing in a match. While it's hard to compare it to Tarkov because it's far more engaged in the arena side of FPS design than it is in being an extraction shooter or simulation, the comparison was going to be made just because both exist within the same subgenre. If you like Tarkov for that game's questing and base building, you probably won't like Hunt. Hunt's progression instead focuses on immediate access to weaponry to allow for instant loadout creativity, but because of this, it's allowed for a far more even playing field since weapon prices aren't much of a consequence, so even level 1 accounts could use a Mosin with Spitzer if they wanted to. Then again, this is also kind of backfiring because it's kind of hard to balance around the pricing of a weapon. Like, that's not a real way to balance the dolch. Come on, Crytek, hear me out. It's also far less demanding than some extraction shooters. Hunt will let you drop and pick up the game anytime you want without losing any progress. Like, that's one of the biggest reasons I didn't get into Forever Winter at first, or still I'm not really that into Tarkov, because you lose something from not playing it. Not just skill, but tangible resources, whether it be Forever Winter's water or gasoline for your hideout. The only thing you lose from not playing Hunt is skill since you've let it rust in your absence. While Hunt's changed over the course of its existence, the games remain consistent with its idea of fighting and dying to clunky weaponry in an immensely detailed wasteland, for the most part. Future Yeij here because I really want to quickly butt in. If it wasn't really that obvious from some of the things in this video that I had written this around and recorded around the Post Malone Murder Circus event. So a lot of the critiques about the game and Crytek itself were about like the game at that point of its life. And to be fair, I still think a lot of this is applicable to today for both the game and Crytek. But this next part, it maybe is a bit whiplashy to Hunt players today. We're like, what the fuck are they talking about? This happened forever ago. But yeah, sorry if this video or this section is a bit messy. Yeah, just a bit of a warning. Crytek's events have been cool, I guess. There were a lot of great additions to the game, and I'm not counting skins as content. Like, I'm actually talking about skills and weapons. Like, cosmetics, I guess, can be content. A lot of people value that heavily. There are so many cool hunters and weapons cosmetics. Like, dude, look at this guy. You could play as a fucking redneck. Like, yeah, dude. If anything, I wish that they kept more from these events, like the fire maps, the restoration medkits, and even the circus from the fucking Post Malone event. At least Post Malone felt like he actually plays the game in those interviews. That's the only reason I didn't want to fully shit on the event in this video, because I'm a really pretentious asshole. The events are nice switch ups from the base game. That's what events are for. But once an event ends, the game feels less interesting. They're so prominent in the game's life cycle that once the fun, experimental, or cool additions leave, it's a bit hard to play the base game as much. Seriously, the fire maps, what the fuck, they were so fun. Like, they made fighting in the wilderness so much more interesting. I don't want Hunt Showdown to become like Fortnite, where there's new content every single day or whatever the fuck. I don't want Crytek to put their developers like Tim Sweeney does with their developers. I don't know, oh man, I can't imagine what the hell the Fortnite devs go through. But Hunt's become a live service game, whether I like to admit it or not. There's a big demand for a steady influx of new content. I'm mostly missing the unique weather conditions that offer incredibly cool variety to matches, but the worst part of the events is how they're just really bad battle passes due to being filled with FOMO and grindy quests. Like, I'm not a Helldivers 2 fanboy, but that game's got a great battle pass system. You don't have to wring money out of players with FOMO, Crytek. There's a better way to profit off of Hunt without enshittification or whales with all of the skins being constantly released. The skins are so fucking good too, like I said. Like, dude, I would just like to present that it feels like there's more of an effort and priority put into the game's monetization rather than significantly new content and game stability. You've got players frequently complain about crashes, optimization, and even server quality. And I know Crytek is wanting to improve. They're not as dormant as Valve when it comes to community communication, but they're also not as open. It's greatly appreciated that the last event was more focused on game stability and quality, but it shouldn't have taken this long for you guys to do that. You guys instead have prioritized getting an event out that basically was selling guns with Post Malone's initials on them. Events and Hunter skin releases being constant recurrences almost feel like Crytek's trying to stay afloat or appease some rich, oh, they laid off like 15% of their employees earlier this year, right after Hunt's biggest event too. Really? Damn, what the fuck? Come on, Crytek. I know I'm giving you a lot of shit here, but come on, dude. Like, I really want to give you guys, like, the benefit of the doubt. As much as I love Hunt, I can't really defend the money men who run the show and simultaneously harm it. I just wanted to share my love for it, but it's hard to ignore these thoughts while doing so. Crytek's promoting a lame form of monetization, lessening build variety by giving more weapons access to different types of special ammo, created some Hunter skins that are incredibly hard to see in the dark or mud, and made Hunt arguably faster paced than it was in the past. Yet, the core gameplay is fucking phenomenal. I can criticize the suits at the top, but I have to give credit to the programmers and artists and designers who worked tirelessly to construct such a special game. I grew up playing Counter-Strike and Team Fortress 2, but eventually sticking to just CS for the majority of my life when it came to competitive multiplayer games. But once Hunt grabbed me, it became the singular multiplayer game that I gravitated towards. Hell, in one of my courses I took like 3 semesters ago, I would shill the game every opportunity I get. It's never, I guess I'm done with Hunt. It's always, I should hit up Ethan this weekend for some Hunt. The gameplay is so engaging in its complexity that I can even overlook the absence of a story. It's not that Hunt has no story, it has really cool writing, but you have to go so out of the way just to find it. It doesn't help at all that they've removed the bestiary and library of arms from the game. It's such a shame and just so weird because it's an amazing horror atmosphere with a great premise. I loved reading anything I could get my hands on in the game's menus. Now the most the game will hand you is a loading screen tip or a skin description. Then again, it's also strong proof that vibes alone carry the game without needing all of the world's history and details. The lore is already mysterious, but for the average player who's not looking for that, Hunt's dilapidation and otherworldly horrors already pique enough curiosity beyond the thrill of spilling other players' blood. It's an incredibly unique game that everybody should at least try once in their lifetime. Seriously, Crytek's developers made something special with Hunt and continue to make it even more of a standout title since the 7 or so years of it being put on Steam. It's got a lot of work to get back to its glory days for sure, but could you really play any other multiplayer FPS that gives you the same kick as Hunt? You'll find many a Wild West game with the same rugged wilds and many a competitive FPS with explosively loud firearms, but would any of them terrify you with thinking about how you should open a door? Yeah, Crytek, can you please bring back Mission South?
Okay. This kind of feels weird because there's an audience member now. Just end the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, all that stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. You want to see more of it. If you really liked it, I have a Ko-fi page, and also you can become a channel member now. But please only do so if you can financially afford it. It's really been a brick since the last video, so I'm very sorry about that. This video is basically over now, so the next part is just going to be me explaining my absence, so if you don't care for that, you're free to leave. So yeah. Also, there's going to be rambly because I don't have a script for it. Yeah, so the biggest reason as to my absence or just not uploading has been uni, because I was in uni for the last... I graduated uni in June, May-ish. Yeah, in like late May. So besides just dealing with homework and stuff, I also had to do a capstone project. Probably put like footage of it on screen. It's not the greatest thing ever. I mean, some of the art's cool. I did all the art for that. And then alongside that, I was pretty much working on 2 separate games for most of the past year. So there's Frag-a-Friend, which is like this multiplayer first-person shooter inspired by s.t.a.l.k.e.r. So if that sounds cool, go check it out. My itch page is going to be linked in the description. And then there's also Contract Dreams, a game I made with friends for LSD Jam 2024. And yeah, so basically, besides school, I also just have been working on game projects. Like these past 3-ish months, I've been working on stealth immersive sim with one of my friends, so that's been taking up some of my time, especially since I'm doing more programming than usual. Keep an eye out for that, I guess. Might upload something here about that, but yeah, it's mainly when I was in school, no longer school anymore though, and personal projects that distracted me from this personal project. The other thing is production issues. Like, really, like, I almost scrapped this video like 4 or 5 times because I wasn't proud of the scripts. It's kind of some imposter syndrome with the Crawl video, because I mean that one was pretty good, and it was kind of scary how big it was, because I don't know, like it's like some sort of insurmountable feeling of not being able to top that, even though that's unreasonable. But yeah, I guess that's my life update. End of the video now. Yeah.
Is Ian? Is Ian the Asian dude?
Dude, why? What, you look at the Chinese character and think that's me? Come on. I thought we were done with that for the night. Come on, man.
Wait, you don't have the Chinese DLC, Ian?
I do.
Fuck China.
I do.
Oh my god, why are there 2?